Being a heavyweight boxing champion is no joke, but can you use your boxing skills to become a superhero and join the Justice League of America? Well, Ted Grant showed us that it was indeed possible. Starting out as a boxing champion, this 6'5" athlete quickly climbed the ranks and upgraded himself from being a boxer to a vigilante superhero, and soon started working with heroes like Batman, Superman, and so many more. But how did he manage to do it? Was it just his fighting skills? Or, as his name suggests, did he possess some Wildcat-like traits? Well, that is what we are going to look for in this video. So, let's get into it and learn more about Wildcat's anatomy. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Ted Grant? How did he become Wildcat? Before we dive into what led to Ted Grant becoming Wildcat, we have to take a few steps back and learn about his life before he became the vigilante we know him as. So let's first do that. Ted grew up during the Great Depression. The condition of his family was rather rough, as Henry, his father, was often taken advantage of by the people who surrounded him. Henry, like most parents, did not want Ted to go through the same kinds of issues that he had to endure. He wanted Ted to have a better life. So, to make Ted a more disciplined individual, and frankly, a more intimidating one, Henry taught Ted how to box. And what do you know? That was just the thing for Ted. Ted really picked up on it, and he was a rising star in boxing. His athletic acumen and calculated moves drove Ted's popularity as a boxer, and things were going well for the father-son duo. As Ted came of age and college became a part of his career plan, he chose medicine. However, Henry had his shortcomings, which were reflected in their finances. He did not have enough money to put Ted through medical school and realized the financially adverse state of the family. Ted decided to start working in a warehouse as a loader instead. Sometimes you've just got to do whatever it takes, you know? On one such day, while he was working in the warehouse, one of the unloaders was attacked by a couple of thugs. As Ted was a trained boxer since childhood, he could swiftly deal with them, dodging all of their predictable attacks. The unloader who was attacked turned out to be the one and only Mike Soccer-Smith Muldoon. Muldoon used to be a fighter himself, but now that his glory days were over, he was stuck being an unloader. Witnessing true talent in front of him, Muldoon decided that he would promote Ted in boxing, and soon enough, Ted gained quite the notoriety. Ted knew that Muldoon still had what it takes to be a fighter, so he insisted Muldoon pick up fighting again. At his friend's insistence, Muldoon picked up fighting again, and soon enough, the two friends became the most popular names in the heavyweight championship. Now, obviously, they had their separate fan club, and the fans wanted them to go against one another to see who would prevail. The two friends were not opposed to facing each other in the ring, because who does not like a little bit of friendly competition? However, things quickly turned for the worse when Muldoon died in the ring. In fact, what had happened behind the scenes for this fight was that an infamous crime lord, Moretti, wanted Muldoon to lose the fight on purpose. When Ted learned about this, he did not want Muldoon to follow Moretti's scheme. With Muldoon no longer interested in playing along, Moretti bribed someone else. That someone else happened to be Flint Fane, Ted's manager. With Muldoon losing the fight, Ted and Fane would be catapulted into fame, and Fane was okay with getting his hand dirty for it. Together, Moretti and Fane devised a plan where Fane would put a poison-laced needle in Muldoon's glove, and when Moretti gave the signal, at the push of a button, the needle would prick Muldoon. In low dosage, the poison would make Muldoon dizzy, giving Ted the upper hand in the fight. However, they got the dosage wrong, and the unthinkable happened. Now, the authorities obviously took in Ted because he was the primary suspect. Moretti and Fane did not like that very much, because Ted knew about Moretti's offer to Muldoon. They were sure that Ted would rat them out, so they tried to silence him by driving into the police car transporting him. The crash claimed the lives of the police officers who were with Ted, and Ted, who knew this was a personal attack, decided to run away to save his life. The death of the cops was also pinned on him, and Ted knew that if he showed his face anywhere, he would immediately be taken into custody. While on the run, he came across a little boy whose favorite comic book was stolen from him. Ted and the little boy got to chatting, and the little boy told him about Green Lantern. Yes, the Green Lantern, who was his favorite hero. Hearing about the noble exploits of the hero inspired Ted to fight for his innocence instead of running away. He made himself the iconic black cat costume and became Wildcat with only one goal: to clear his name. As Wildcat, Ted got Fane and Moretti to confess their crimes, and justice was served. This marked the beginning of his crime-fighting days. Does he have 9 lives? Unlike other superheroes, Wildcat just seems to be a man who is at the top of his game when it comes to his health, strength, and fighting skills so far, right? Just because his name is Wildcat does not mean he would have the fabled 9 lives that are attached to cats, right? Well, at first he did not. He was really just an everyday guy who was a boxer in the morning and a vigilante superhero at night. Stories of his adventures reached the public, and soon enough, he joined the Justice League of America. While joining the JLA comes with perks, such as being a part of the major superhero team of the whole country. It also comes with cons, such as having to deal with an interdimensional creepy kid named QWSP, who escaped from the 5th dimension and showed up on Earth to create chaos. While every member of the Justice League team was trying to figure out a way to send the kid back, Wildcat ended up drawing the short end of the stick. He was the one who the kid made an example of by bursting his heart. The whole ordeal visibly shook Hippolyta because she was not expecting her lover, Ted Grant, to die in her arms when she went to deal with a kid with hundreds. As Hippolyta was coping with the loss of Ted Grant, suddenly Ted opened his eye, much to the surprise and joy of his team members. It turns out that since 1945, Ted Grant has had the power of resurrection, or, as he calls it, 9 lives. But what happened in 1945? Well, hold on to your boots, because I am going to tell you. So, remember how he was like a cool boxer who went to the World Championships? Yeah, well, King Inferno, this mighty sorcerer, wanted Ted to throw a boxing match just for him. When Ted refused to do the boxing match, King Inferno straight up cursed him to be a cat. Yep, a cat. Luckily, JLA was friends with Giovanni Zatara, the magician, ever since they helped him with his wife, who had gone missing. So Zatara did everyone a massive favor and amended the curse from Ted being a cat to him having 9 lives, from curse to a boon. Now that is what I call a hustle. Also, Ted, being the secretive man he is, had kept this 9 lives thing a secret from all of his teammates, which is why everyone was shocked to see him alive after getting his heart burst into tiny pieces. The mystery of Wildcat's slow aging. Obviously, when Zatara altered the curse, it affected a lot more than Ted's ability to resurrect. It also changed the way he would age, which makes sense. Having resurrection as his ability means that, in all likelihood, his old cells get replaced with newer cells far quicker than people like us. This would obviously imply, as a matter of fact, that he would also be far younger than all of us because of the younger cells in his body. On top of that, he had ended up running into Ian Karkull 4 years prior to getting this curse, which also played a role in this decelerated aging. For those who do not know Ian Karkull, back in the 1930s, he was an archaeologist who came across the lost city of Ragnar. There, he gained superpowers that allowed him to wield dark magic. He predominantly altered shadows, but messing up someone's physiology was not an impossible task for him. When Ian Karkull and JLA faced off, Wildcat was a part of it, and his aging was slowed down due to this encounter. Does Wildcat possess night vision, or is it a different form of enhanced awareness? When you have a name like Wildcat, you are expected to show characteristics similar to that of a Wildcat, right? When it comes to Ted Grant, he does have everything that a Wildcat should have, even the nocturnal vision. As a child, Ted went through a lot of training to be the boxing champion, and that made his spatial awareness rather exceptional. His ability to adapt to his surroundings is phenomenal, and along with his highly trained senses, he can easily navigate his way out of a mess. This training, along with his naturally heightened eyesight at birth, allowed Ted to have extremely good dim light vision. So, if he ever says he's seen Dr. Midnight perform surgery in complete darkness, I believe it, without a single doubt in my mind. Wildcat's mind control resistance. Mark Twain said that the one animal which cannot be made into a slave of the leash is the cat, which rings true in every sense, both for the actual animal and our hero, Wildcat. When Ultra Humanite, the mastermind, showed up on Earth, he used his telepathic abilities to turn pretty much every superhuman into a slave. As his slave, their bodies were turned into vessels that would mindlessly follow his commands and let him be the one in charge. Only a handful of superheroes were able to escape his clutches, while most of these heroes ran away and hid themselves to prevent their minds from being taken over. When it came to Wildcat, the situation was a little different. In his case, no matter how much the Ultra Humanite tried, he could not take over Ted's free will. Now, where does this resistance to mind control power come from? Nobody knows. But if I had to guess, I would say it is definitely because of his willpower. He is a strong man, both physically and mentally. His mental fortitude is far higher than normal people. His physical training as a boxer had also trained his mind, and this was what effectively played a role in his having this type of mental fortitude. We saw this happen in the case of Logan as well. He was not easy to mind control because of the amount of hardship he had endured and how he had trained himself. So personally, my vote would go to his willpower.
Undefeated champ,
Can he transform into a real cat? Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but sorry folks, he does not actually turn into a cat. I know. We have even seen Superman turned into a cat at one point, thanks to Catwoman and the magic wand of Cersei. But Wildcat never transforms into a cat. But that does not mean we cannot draw parallels between him and his cat-like features, like he did a fake-out on Hippolyta when his heart exploded into so many pieces. He could have just told her that he had 9 lives, but no, he did not. Very reminiscent of a cat's mischief. However, for a big man who is, 6'5"? He is extremely agile. He moves from one place to another with effortless speed and makes next to no noise, almost making it impossible to follow him. This agility of his can be because he is trained in so many martial arts. This man has mastered Taekwondo, boxing, capoeira, Hapkido, Krav Maga, Muay Thai, and kickboxing. Being more than adept at so many different fighting styles definitely required him to work on his speed, reflexes, strength, and energy. And after years of hard work on his agility, he can easily be as sneaky as a cat trying to steal a fish. Does Batman learn martial arts from Wildcat? If becoming vengeance is the goal of your life, like it was for our boy Bruce, then you would definitely have to train in a lot of martial arts style. After all, you have to be prepared for all kinds of fights. Any Batman fan knows that Bruce has quite the resume when it comes to his extracurricular activity. If Bruce wanted, he could just as easily become an MMA fighter with the many different fighting styles he knows. Now, he obviously did not learn every fighting style from the same place. Not like our Batman had an academy he could enroll into. Instead, Bruce went from one person to another, learning different fighting style. And Wildcat happened to be one of his many mentors. Back in the day, after Wildcat had cleared his name and gotten rid of Meridian Fane, who had him framed for killing Muldoon, he used to spend his time training new aspiring heroes in the art of boxing. Bruce happened to be one of many, which included but was not limited to Catwoman, Black Canary, and even Superman. Is he more powerful than Killer Croc? It is no secret that Wildcat is quite strong, especially for someone who is human for the most part, except, the 9 lives thing. But the question remains, how strong is he? The best way to figure out his strength would be to see how well he fares when he is put up against someone who is significantly stronger than him, right? And that is exactly what we are going to do. In the Batman Wildcat comic, we get to see Wildcat face off against Killer Croc, who is quite the strong opponent. I mean, if you have to square off against someone strong, why not go up against the anthropomorphic crocodilian reptilian man? The fight was brutal, as you might imagine. Wildcat was no child, and he was not new to a beatdown. Being a heavyweight world champion requires you to tank quite a few onslaughts of punishment, as you can imagine. However, there is definitely a huge difference between being punched in the ring with rules and referees, and being clawed at by a crocodilian man who was not shy about using his lethal claws. Wildcat was not going to go down easily, but there is only so much beating that a person can take. After a whole 90 minutes of grueling beatdown, Wildcat was still standing on his feet, but his state was not looking too good. Killer Croc, on the other hand, looked like he was having the time of his life. The arena was full of gruesome noises, of bones breaking, flesh being ripped apart, and at one point, you could almost recognize the sound of Wildcat's spleen bursting in the middle of the fight. Overall, things were not looking too good. Even then, Wildcat was standing, and he was not showing any sign of backing down. But when Killer Croc shoved Wildcat into the metal bar of the ring, it was clear Wildcat was no longer conscious. Then Killer Croc broke his spine like a celery stick, and this was the gruesome end of Wildcat. But it was not. Turns out, this Wildcat was not Ted Grant. This Wildcat imposter was Hector Ramirez, a young man who had just finished high school and had gotten into boxing. Somehow, he had ended up in the underground fight club known as the Secret Ring, and in a match there, he had ended up dying. His body was found near the dock, and when Bruce Wayne went to check the body, he realized that this was an imposter. He did not know where the real Wildcat, as in Ted Grant, was, as he had lost touch. But as readers, we know that Ted Grant is around, and he is not very happy with the farce they had made of Wildcat in this Secret Ring fight club. So Wildcat goes to the one man he is sure to get information from, Penguin. You rough him up a bit, and Penguin will start singing like a canary. And that is exactly what Penguin did. Penguin gave Wildcat the details about Fleabag Fitzgerald, hoping Wildcat would leave him alone. Wildcat's intuition was right. Fleabag did know the place where the secret ring was being held, and that is where we learn why Ted took Hector's death so personally. He knew Hector and knew Hector was just a good kid who wanted to be like him. So, Hector's death weighed heavily on Ted. Now that he had the address to the secret ring, it did not take Wildcat long to show up at the arena and force his way into the ring, which was dangerous because while the other Wildcat was an imposter, the Killer Croc was not. So clearly, this secret ring is not opposed to using actual juiced-up supervillains in a fight. Well, as luck would have it, who is Wildcat's opponent in the ring? Why, of course, it was his former pupil Batman. Ernie Chubb, the man behind this whole secret ring fight club, had tricked the two superheroes into fighting one another and was getting a direct view of the fight from his place. But that view was obstructed by Oracle, who used her cyber hacking skills to disrupt the viewing, giving Batman and Wildcat just enough time to get out of the cage and escape. Seeing the heroes escape, on Ernie's request, Lockup pulled the lever, freeing every single supervillain fighter that they had in their arsenal. This led to one thing we had been waiting for. The Killer Croc and Wildcat fight. Obviously, Killer Croc was sure this Wildcat was going to be an easy opponent to beat, but he was up for a rude awakening. While Steel Jacket, the zombie, tried to hold Wildcat back and help out Killer Croc in his attack, Wildcat was able to get rid of him easily. He rained blow after blow on Killer Croc, talking about how tender crocodiles are when in a brisket. By the time he was done, Killer Croc was sitting on the floor, clutching his stomach. Who knew that a hit in the solar plexus would leave a crocodile whimpering like a baby? I did not. Since Wildcat took down Killer Croc in 3 punches, it is very clear that he is the undisputed champion between the two of them, and definitely far stronger than Killer Croc. Marvelous verdict. Basically, long story, super short. Wildcat is an interesting character. His loyalty and compassion are truly commendable. With dedicated training in various martial arts, and a very convenient curse that was reformed, Ted Grant ended up becoming the fan-favorite vigilante superhero of the DC Universe. No wonder why all the rats in Gotham City scurry at the name of Wildcat. I mean, I would too, wouldn't you? And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe.